Hey everybody, kind of doing a quick redo of the last Tiger Talk. So this is Tiger Talk 2.0, right? The other one had some echoey background shit, and my dumbass didn't figure it out. And Xavier and I were having this whole conversation, and everything I was saying was being echoed, everything he was saying was being echoed. So I'm just going to blaze through some of the points that I was making. Basically, came across a viral video on Facebook, millions of views. This guy basically has been diagnosed with cancer at the age of 24. He's 27 at the time he makes the video. He's married and he has a 7-month-old, not 7-month-old, a 7-month-old daughter. And he's making this video as kind of like a time capsule for his daughter to watch and be inspired and to kind of have some kind of memory, a video memory of her father. And it's very heartfelt and very touching. It does tug on your heartstrings, and it's very sad. My mother passed away from cancer. So I totally feel where he's coming from, and I thought it was a good idea. If like I have a daughter, if I were to find out that my family's genetics somehow caused me to inherit this cancer, I don't know if I would have had that idea to make this time capsule video. So kudos to him. Hats off to him. My issue that I take with the video, and you're saying, well, how can you take issue with the video? I mean, are you cold, or are you an asshole? So, no, I think it's good that he did that. What I had a problem with was he starts off the video saying, I want my daughter to know that I love the Lord, that I'm blessed, I get to do everything that I want to do, and when I pass away, God is going to basically be her new father, and he's going to take care of her the same way that he was taken care of. So I was kind of like, wow, you're kind of guilt tripping your daughter into following the religion that you follow, because how could she not? I mean, if she said, well, I'm not really feeling religion, maybe I'm going to be an atheist, or maybe I'm a little agnostic, or maybe I'm going to be a Hindu, or I'm going to be I don't know, a Muslim, right? I'm going to follow the Muslim faith. How could she possibly do that without being guilt tripped and saying, well, what about your father? All the friends and family, they know this video. It's got millions of views. She's only 7 months old. Anytime she's scared or lonely, or someone, something bad's happening to her, she's being picked on, she's going to go to that video for support. It's her cherished video memory of her father and the love that he's devoting to her in the video. So to me, that was like a form of child abuse, mental child abuse. And just kind of forcing her, like indoctrinating her into the religion, like really pushing his beliefs. Like, oh, it's not enough that I'm, he is a Christian, but that my child is a Christian child, because she had no choice but to be my child, right? So I had that issue with it. He says that he was going through chemo, and he was really going through a lot of different tests and things, and he got stage 4 cancer. The cancer was spreading faster than the chemo could kill it, so it's kind of like filling a bathtub up without the stopper in it. So he said it was making him feel sick. He was throwing up all the time. He was miserable. He was in pain, and I remember that. I remember my mom going through that. Her skin was turning yellow. The meat in her eyes were yellow. Her hair was falling out. You couldn't really hug her. You couldn't really, hold her. She was just in pain and agony, and just miserable, and she's, she got to a point where she was like, this is too much. And same with this guy, he said he turned his back on the chemo after all that, struggle, and decided, I'm just going to put this behind me. I understand I'm going to succumb to this fate. I'm going to try to live my days in the most positive way that I can. Right? Okay, great. That's great. But then he says that, God's going to, remember he said God is going to take care of his daughter the same way that God took care of him. And I'm like, well, by that logic, you're saying that your daughter's going to get cancer at 24, and she's going to succumb to this, you know, the same way, you know, married and having a child of her own and making a time capsule of her own. You know, he said that he was blessed, and it's like, well, in your view, you're Christian. I'm assuming God blessed you with the science not having an answer for cancer and failing, and all of the travel and the testing and the chemo and, you know, the false hopes of getting better, you know, and all of that misery and you know, deterioration, slow, dragged out death was known ahead of time, right? You know, it was already, they already knew that this was going to be a failed endeavor, that you were going to succumb to this. So that to me was just kind of bizarre, you know. So, you know, I take problem with it because A, he's guilt-tripping his daughter into following that religion without giving her an opportunity to explore other religions and kind of, you know, see where she, you know, lies with it. And then two, it's kind of this, you know, you're going to be taken care of, I'm always going to be watching over you kind of a thing. It's like, well, if anything, the wife's probably going to have to take up with some other man. She has bills that she has to pay. She has to pay all these hospital bills, most likely, and the funeral costs and things like this. So there's going to be some other daddy that comes around, and then she's going to be conflicted with, well, I thought God is my new daddy, and who's this other guy? I'm not going to, you know, treat him like my real daddy. He's not going to be accepted. He's not God. You know, that was the part that I took issue with. You know, again, my heart goes out to that family and the suffering and the grief that they're forced to come to terms with. I just don't agree with the last bit of the message in that video every time that she watches it, basically. So yeah, to recap on the other video, I didn't touch on this, but there was a three-way tie with authority and subordinate, truth and falsity, and just kind of random and freestyle. So this talk is just going to be freestyle, as I've already been kind of blabbing away here. Typing that in here now. This is the freestyle session. We're going to have a social suggestion. Which is just simply this. There's a social suggestion number 2. And that is when somebody passes away, right? A friend or family, or maybe of your own, or maybe you know somebody whose friend or family member has passed away. Anytime that there's children involved, I noticed that the main response is typically, you know, well, we have to comfort this person, right? They're distraught. How can we do this? They'll tell the child that the person is asleep. They'll tell the child that they're not in pain anymore, and then we know that it goes into kind of a John Smith. He loved trampolines, so now he's on the big trampoline. He gets the trampoline all day, every day, so he's happy wherever he's at. You know, so don't worry about him. He's fine, or she, right? They're fine. They're doing great. You know, number 2, my view on it is we should stick to what is honest and what we know for fact, what we can verify. As far as we know, you know, when we see somebody pass away or discover that somebody's passed away, we know that their heart stops. They're still. They deteriorate. And they aren't alive anymore, right? And they're not going to be able to, you know, laugh at our jokes or visit us on the weekends or go with us to the beach or do any of the things that we were used to them doing. They're not alive anymore. We know that for a fact. So instead of us adding on to those things, we should simply say, this person has passed away, right? The religious person, compare the religious person's checklist to this checklist, and they should be able to agree on these simple things. They should be able to say, hey, this person's passed away. Check, right? They agree with that. We loved this person. Check, right? And we have to try to remember why we loved this person or thought they were important to us to begin with. And then finally, we want to honor that person in our lives and try to live our lives in a way as best we can that reflects that they had any interaction with us whatsoever. You know, if I had a problem drinking and a friend of mine got me out of that rut and showed me how to be responsible or drink responsibly or even give up drinking altogether or whatever it is, I'm just using that for an example, and they pass away, I want to reflect on that and remember that. And maybe when I come across a friend of mine that is in a similar situation, I can use some of those techniques that they used on myself, you know, and passing that forward. And I think that is positive. I think that is good. And I think that's the best that we can do. Obviously, you're going to still go through a grieving process. You're not supposed to follow some type of standard of how long it should take you to grieve. You know, that's fine. But I think we can agree on those simple facts to add on the additional part of, you know, Spot, you know, the goldfish, or Spot the dog, right, passed away, and they're in the big dog park, or they're in the big fish bowl, and they're eating all the food and playing and doing whatever. You know, that to me, or even a person, you know, they're on the big trampoline, they're doing, you know, whatever they love to do. So they're not in any pain, don't worry about it. I think that diminishes any type of empathy or sympathy that we have with somebody while they're alive. Because in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, you know, when Xavier passes away, it doesn't matter that he asked me to pick him up from the airport and I told him I would and I didn't, and I just laughed at him and he was stranded. Because, you know, ultimately when he passes away, he's going to be doing whatever it is that he loves to do, and he'll be happy and he'll forget all about the problems that he had with me. So ultimately it doesn't really matter, right? It's kind of putting off any of your responsibility to treat that person well while they're alive. You know, so social suggestion number 2 is just simply being honest with what you actually do know, religious or not. You know, you can say, well, hey, my scripture, my holy book says XYZ happens when you pass away. But what we can actually view with our own 2 eyes, and what we can actually agree on without looking at these authorities, right, these books, is saying that the person passed away, we love that person, we want to remember why it is that they were important to us, and how we can honor that person in the most appropriate way in our lives. So just really quick, I just want to go through you know, a thought experiment. You know, the next, and this might be difficult, the next time that you have found out that, you know, somebody that you know, right, has passed away, or somebody that's passed away who's close to a friend of yours, right? So either someone that's personal to you, or maybe a third party, and that you know, a friend of yours or another family member has lost somebody and they're dealing with it and they're expressing that to you. When you get this information, as soon as you hear it, obviously the person is sad. They say, man, you know, it's terrible. You know, Johnny passed away in a car accident. He was so young, and we all miss him. And, you know, it's hard to kind of think of what pictures to put in for the memorial service. And, you know, I can't even think right now. And they're down and they're depressed. When you have the opportunity to speak and respond, use that checklist. Tell that person that, hey, they passed away. We loved them. We want to remember what it was that drew them into our lives. You might have bits of information or exclusive information, a funny story or something that wasn't present for the other person. And that's why it should take a community, the collective of everybody that was touched by that person's life, to come together and share those stories and share those ideas and get through the grieving process together. I think that's the most positive and most decently good thing that we can do while we're all struggling with the loss of a loved one. You know, if you're going to respond to that person's grief in telling you this with, well, you know, don't worry about it. They're jumping in rain puddles up in, you know, up in heaven, and they're not feeling any pain right now, and they're looking down on you, and, you know, everything's fine. That doesn't really solve the problem of the grief. It doesn't solve the problem. It's like you're trying to take the problem and put it in the drawer and close it, and it's out of sight, out of mind. You're saying, well, don't you know? God took care of that. So we can just go on to the next thing. That person is, you know, is going to need support and going to need actual help. You know, you don't want somebody who was so attached to that person that maybe they're contemplating suicide, and, you know, you're going to tell them that, oh, that car accident was meant to happen. They were meant to be split in half by the Mack truck that hit them. You know, one of my friends was run over by a fire truck. That was meant to happen so they can have a better time next time. I don't think that's good. So challenge yourself to be that change, and then, you know, knock on wood that you ever, or knock on wood, but hopefully you never, anytime recent, you know, or anytime soon, you don't have to, you know, deploy this method. But yeah, if on the off chance you do lose somebody, or you hear that a friend or a loved one of, you know, has lost somebody, and they're having that difficult time, look for that method of reminding them why they were important. Not that you would need to do that, you know, individually. I'm sure they have their own reasons, but see what you can do to contribute to the memory of that person and work to how you can honor that person. Find a unique and cool, exciting way that you can honor that person, whether it's some type of a monument that you want to donate money for, or you know, you want to do something that was a big part of that person's life and just incorporate that in your life. You know, if they wore different color laces on their shoes and that was what they were known for, maybe you do it once a month, you know, with your friends and your family, and it's a nice thing, and it's exclusive to you all. You know, these are the types of things that you should be doing. In my opinion, I think that it's lazy, and I think it's inconsiderate to simply shrug it off and say that everything's fine. But you know, the reason that Justin Thompson wasn't able to speak with us today was because, you know, we had a little bit of Murphy's Law. His phone, wouldn't you have it, was destroyed. Basically, the screen was like smashed. So I did a couple test calls prior to, you know, he wasn't able to accept the calls. So unfortunately, he wasn't able to be on this video. But in closing, I'm actually about to get some food here at Bahama Breeze, and then we're gonna watch the It movie and see if it's actually any good. But yeah, just wanted to share some of those thoughts. You know, feel free to comment what you think about the cancer video, if it was appropriate or inappropriate, or you don't have a problem with the religion part of it. And catch us on the next Tiger Talk, Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you.